Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm Paige. I'm an addict and so grateful to be here with you guys today. So where we're going to kick it off is the Forward to the First Edition, and you can find it on page XIII, which is usually more helpful if you just go to the Forward to the First Edition and it'll be right there. And so what we covered last week is we were talking about the very first paragraph, and we went through the preface and we went through the title page, but right now we're in the Forward to the First Edition. And the first paragraph, and welcome everyone that just joined us. We're so glad you're here. And so the Forward to the First Edition is the forward that was in the book when the book was first published, when it went out to the world. And so we're going to kick it off at the second paragraph of the Forward to the First Edition. And again, I'm saying that a whole lot so we can all find it. Because when we are in, my goal is for when DC takes it on next month, that I can get her. No, there's no way I'm getting you out of the Roman numerals. I'm so sorry. There's no way that's happening. I might get us out of the Forward to the Second Edition. No promises, though. So I was trying to be helpful, but we're not gonna. So, alrighty. It says, it is important that we remain anonymous, because we are too few at present to handle the overwhelming number of personal appeals which may result from this publication. And you'll notice that the title of this book is Alcoholics Anonymous, and that is something that we're going to come back to, but that we spoke about a number of times. And the reason we talk about the title of the book being Alcoholics Anonymous, because the fellowship, Alcoholics Anonymous, is named after the title of this book, not the other way around. And so when it says it is important that we remain anonymous, as in the anonymous authors of this book, the anonymous fellowship, XIII, Forward to the First Edition, XIII, got an X and then 3 I's. And you go to the preface and then you're like, not that page, and you turn it over and you're like, that page. That's how you find it. And if you still haven't found it, I am so sorry. Don't worry, I'll go on tangent, so you'll have plenty of time to catch up and try to find it. That's a promise. Don't write that in your book. Paige goes on tangents. One of the promises in the big book. No. Don't write that down. That's more for the inventory. Oh, thank you, DC. And so what it's saying is that the original idea of anonymity, keep in mind, this is the first edition. The book goes out into the world. We don't have the 12 traditions yet. But what we're beginning to see is the genesis, the basic ideas for the foreword. Oh, awesome. Everyone's just putting the page in the chat. Y'all are delightful. I just love that. It's service-minded. But we're talking about the basic idea of the traditions being formed and being formulated before they were formally written down, before we were accepted, before they were put on scrolls on the wall and put in this book. These are the basic ideas and the simple principle of anonymity. Now, it's also important to understand the word anonymity. Often we think it means that people don't know our last names, but that has very little to do with anonymity. Anonymity is about humility and selfless service. That is the principle of anonymity. But at this point in the book, at this point in the history of Alcoholics Anonymous, which informs Cocaine Anonymous, they are anonymous because they are so afraid that when this book goes out into the world and it's published, that they're going to be so overwhelmed by alcoholics in need of help that they're just they don't know what to do, right? So what they're saying, that first sentence is saying, we are remaining anonymous because if we put our names to this, we're going to be so overwhelmed by people asking us for help. It goes on to say, being mostly business or professional folk, we could not well carry on our occupations in such an event. Because, I mean, if you imagine this book goes out into the world and and we're going to talk about the numbers when we get to the Forward to the Second Edition. We're going to talk about how, the book goes out and for every alcoholic that they had sober, it was like there was 10 that were asking them for help. Imagine that in this moment you have 10 newcomers that are asking you, please help me, please help me. You might have a little trouble with the 9 to 5. You might be like, ooh, I'm a little overwhelmed, right? And so what they're saying is that they're looking and hoping to stay anonymous so that they can continue to work and to do so in in that way to live a life outside of recovery. And it said we would like it understood that our alcoholic work is an avocation. And if you're writing in your book today, which is what I hear all the cool kids are doing, you know what I'm saying? Ooh, cool kids. Oh, and some of you are double cool kids. So if you're writing in your book, you can make a little note that we are talking about tradition 8. Tradition 8. And when it says we would like it understood that our alcoholic work is an avocation, a vocation is paid employment. I don't have one, but a vocation is a job that I do that I get paid for. Avocation is unpaid work. And I'll be frank with you guys. Oh, nothing in my life is paid. I only advocate. I advocate my way around. You know what I mean? Oh, nothing gets paid. But what they're saying is that 12-step work is free. 12-step work is never to be paid for. Nobody gets paid to work the 12 steps. And what a radical, revolutionary idea. Now in 2024, we come to the rooms of Cocaine Anonymous and we might see somebody with a hope in their spirit, a light on in their eye, and we ask them for help. And let's be real, we do not expect to have to pay them for their services. In fact, if somebody was like, yes, what I'll need you to do is I'll need you to Venmo or Zelle or PayPal me some money, you'd be like, girl, absolutely not. Absolutely not. You know what I'm saying? So this is something that we take for granted because it's so obvious. Of course we ought not be paid for our alcoholic work. Our work with other addicts. Of course that shouldn't be paid. But in 1939, when the world, and very specifically the United States as well, was in the thrust of the Great Depression, everyone was broke. Nobody had money. Everyone was just trying to keep their head above water and survive. And a group of selfish, self-centered alcoholics are like, let me help other people for free? For free. What a revolutionary idea. And welcome to those that just joined us. We're in the forward to the first edition, first page of it. So glad you're here. And so that is tradition 8. And it says, when writing or speaking publicly about alcoholism, we urge each of our fellowship to omit his personal name, designating himself instead as a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. In our case, a member of Cocaine Anonymous. And what we're talking about there is the 11th tradition. So at the public level, that it is not something like, hey, you know what Paige, the addict, says, member of Cocaine Anonymous, says? It would be a member of Cocaine Anonymous was quoted as saying. That is the 11th tradition. And sometimes we hear people in the rooms designate themselves as like, hi, I'm Paige, I'm a member of Alcoholics Anonymous, or I'm Paige, I'm a member of Cocaine Anonymous. And they will say that they do that because it is in the big book. And what I want to say is, it is in the big book. And if people identify that way, that is okay. We're not going to go and we're not going to be like, hey girl, actually, that's not what we are doing. But what I will point out is that is what it is asking us to do at the public level, to forego any personal name and only be quoted or in media at that level of complete anonymity. And it says very earnestly, so that is with sincerity, we ask the press also to observe this request, for otherwise we shall be greatly handicapped. Again, tradition 11. And it's an interesting thing because, man, there's times where it's like, oh man, if that celebrity was a spokesperson, wouldn't that be cool? You know what I mean? But it's an interesting thing that publicity, personal publicity, having a spokesperson, having a visual representation of Cocaine Anonymous at the public level would actually hold back the fellowship. That's what it's saying. And these early ideas, man, these early ideas are the genesis for something deeper. Because I promise you that personal accolade for my own work is not good for me. It's not good for me. It's not good for any of us. You know what I mean? Listen, I know you guys, pocket our pride. Your pride is pocketed. Your pocket full of pride. It's not out and about. But this silly little crackhead, what happens for me, you give me a little validation. I need more. mainland that bad boy. You know what I mean? And I start to think I did something. Ooh, look at me. I'll be honest, this does not actually happen. I never am like, ooh, look at me. I'm so special and important. That's not how I show up to life. But that is what could happen. But it's important for me to remember that I didn't do it. In fact, I did very, very little to be here. I took some actions that I didn't want to take, that I didn't think would help, and that I, absolutely was convinced could not apply to some silly little crackhead like me. And I take that course of action, and lo and behold, a change beyond anything I could have imagined happens to me. Man, I didn't do it. Therefore, I ought not get the credit. So that is another principle of anonymity as humility. Now, look how great Paige is. Paige is not center stage. Look how great a power beyond myself is, and the power of the steps and this fellowship. Look how great that is. And it says we are not an organization in the conventional sense of the word. And if you're writing in your book, and that's what all the cool kids are doing, look at you cool kids, writing in your book, you can make a little note, tradition 9. And because what we're talking about there, we've all heard that phrase, we started a couple minutes late, we ought not be organized, and we all make that joke. But that's not what it's talking about. That's not what we're talking about. What we're saying is that Cocaine Anonymous, and truly Alcoholics Anonymous, that's where we come from, is not structured as a normal company, business, corporation. There's not a CEO of Cocaine Anonymous. The big crackhead in charge, BCHI. BC, you know what I mean? I tried to acronym it, like crackhead in charge. Yes, CHIC, woo, crackhead in charge, Clearly, it should not be me, Don't give me that power. So we don't have the, big crackhead in charge. We don't have the, crackhead in charge of money. Do you know what I mean? It is not a CEO, CFO, managers, middle managers, and lowly employees at the bottom. This structure of somebody at the top. In fact, the service structure of Alcoholics Anonymous, and thereby Cocaine Anonymous, is a reverse pyramid. The most powerful position that I could possibly have is member. I join a group. And as I join a group, that is the most powerful position I have, because every area of service is there to serve me. But what happens is I get a little interested, I get a little involved in service. And any service position I take, it's not like climbing the corporate ladder of success. How I view this thing is as a little like I show up to Cocaine Anonymous, and it's like I'm sitting down at a restaurant, and there are these people that are serving me. And then I get involved in service, and I get involved in service at the group level. And what happens is I'm serving the table of my group. And then I get involved in service at area or a district. And I'm serving my home group, and then the table at area. And I get involved at maybe H&I or public information, and I get involved in those tables. And so it's not climbing the ladder of success, it's serving more tables. And that is what it means by we are not an organization in the conventional sense of the word. You can't fire me. You can't ask me to stop doing this. That's on you guys. All right. It says there are no dues or fees whatsoever. That is the 7th tradition, to be a part of this thing. That you don't have to pay any money. There's no annual fee. There's no, club membership. Some of you guys go to the gym. You got to pay a monthly fee to use that gym. Ooh, we get spiritually fit and there's no monthly fee. Ooh, we do got to spend some time on that spiritual Stairmaster, though. See what I'm saying? Those steps? Pumping that iron of amends. It's so silly. Alrighty. So that's tradition 7. And then it says the only requirement for membership is an honest desire to stop drinking. And we can make a little note, tradition 3, and you'll notice that idea of honest desire to stop drinking. And welcome to those that just joined us, page XIV. We're at the back page of the Forward to the First Edition. That honest desire to stop drinking was taken out when they formalized the 3rd tradition and the long form of the 3rd tradition. Probably because we are people who are looking for every reason not to be here. You know what I mean? And what I will point out is, I promise you, your motives in getting clean do not matter as much as we think they do. Oh, we want to worry about our motives, and I think there's maybe some credence and you got to do it for yourself. But what I'll say is, haven't I been doing the addiction for myself? Haven't I done enough for myself? Have I not focused on me to the point that I am at the end of myself? Maybe it doesn't matter why I take a course of action. Maybe that matters that I take that course of action. I'll just throw that out. But, just to make the bar a way even lower for people like us, they took out that honest. I don't even have to have good motives. I just got to want to be here. Got to have a problem and want to be here. And it says we are not allied with any particular faith, sect, or denomination. That is tradition 6. That idea that we're not religious, we're not affiliated with any religion or denomination. And it says, nor do we oppose anyone, which is tradition 10. We've got no opinion on outside issues of politics, of religion, of treatment, of medicine. We have no opinion. What we simply have is a program of action that works for us, a way of life that works for us. And it says, we simply wish to be helpful to those who are afflicted. You can make a note, tradition 5. That what I am here to do is to be helpful, to not fix, to not manage, to not save, to not cure, to not put on my cape like Mighty Mouse. Here I am to save the day, to be helpful, not codependent. But that is the 5th tradition, our primary purpose. I need to be helpful. And it says, we shall be interested to hear from those who are getting results from this book, particularly those who have commenced work with other alcoholics. Man, we're not even out of the Roman numerals. We haven't even gotten to the real, meat and potatoes of step 1, which is probably, I'll try to get to the doctor's opinion for you. I'll try to give you a fresh start at the doctor's opinion, DC. That's my goal. But we haven't even got there. And already it's saying, I got to work with others. Sponsorship is the deal. If I want to get well, if I want to stay well, I have to work with others. Nobody's going to make you do it other than the pain of your illness, of your addiction. That is the only thing that's going to make you do it. But I promise when you do it, it is the coolest thing. So I got to work with others. Sponsorship, not optional. And by the way, I want to point something out. I often talk about this, and I phrase it quite strongly. Sponsorship, not optional. It is what we do. We work with others. But if you're here today and you've not sponsored, or if you're here today and you're afraid to sponsor, what I want you to know is my hope is that this study, and I do some other studies, but any study that I do, and this one going forward, the purpose of it is to help you have an experience with this book so that you are comfortable carrying this message to others. So if you have not done it yet, what I want to emphasize is that our responsibility for those of us who have recovered, those of us who have gone through this work, those of us who are working with others, is to help you work with others. Let us help you have this incredible experience. And I won't take us there, but when you go to the first 2 paragraphs of working with others, man, they are incredible promises. Life will take on new meaning. To watch people recover, to see loneliness vanish, ensure immunity from drinking, and for us drinking, using, you know what I mean? Like any addictive behavior, freedom is on the other side of that. Who wants to miss that? It's the coolest thing. It's the coolest thing. It's the God dope. You know what I mean? It's everything that I was looking for in the pipe, everything that I was looking for in the bottle, everything that I was looking for in the pill. But if I didn't do it and you told me that, I'd be like, no, sitting and writing inventory with a sponsor, that's not as good as crack, you liar. I promise you it is. I promise you it is. And you only know it by doing it, just like crack. Don't do crack. Well, actually, work a course of spiritual actions in your life as a way of life. These 12 steps, go carry the message to others, and then you won't need to smoke crack. Because I can't tell you don't smoke crack, because that didn't work for me. Spoilers, I was told don't smoke crack. Didn't do anything. Just stop that from happening. Anywho, all right, so it says inquiry by scientific, medical, and religious studies. Oh, it says we should like to be helpful in such cases. Again, that idea of helpful. And that's a theme that we're not going to pick up for a while. That theme of I would like to be helpful, we're going to see in working with others. We're going to see in those later chapters, helpful. And so inquiry by scientific, medical, and religious societies will be welcome. Now, in the back of the book, we have some appendices, which includes by scientific community, the medical community, and religious communities, based on what they think of the program in Alcoholics Anonymous. And we won't do it yet, but in the forward to the second edition, we're going to have a look. And we are going to see some of the recommendations by some of the men of medicine, the early medical homies. Doctors is what they're called. Doctors or medical homies if you're feeling informal. All right, so it says Alcoholics Anonymous. So forward to the second edition. So let's dive in. Forward to the second edition. So figures given in this forward describe the fellowship as it was in 1955. Welcome. We're just kicking off forward to the second edition. It's on page XV. And it's 16 years later. It's the growth of the fellowship. And so it says, since the original forward to this book was written in 1939, a wholesale miracle has taken place. And I want to point something out. A wholesale miracle. I'm pretty sure almost anywhere in the world, I think JC might be the only exception to this. I'm pretty sure everyone else has Costco. Costco? You got Costco?
Yeah.
No Costco. So only JC doesn't get this metaphor. You can empathize, though.
I know what Costco is. I know what it is.
Yeah, you know what it is up. And so imagine going to Costco, not just for the free samples, but again, financial contribution, not mandatory, so you can show up and get your little free sample. Costco requires a membership. You know what? Membership fees. You know what doesn't? Cocaine Anonymous, no membership fees. And I promise, our free samples are better. But I will say it is nice going and get the samples. I don't have a Costco card, so it's a little adventure. They take me, and I'm like, ooh, my samples. I love it. But imagine you go to Costco, and you get a Costco-sized package of miracles. That's what we're talking about. A miracle is something that goes absolutely against the grain of what is expected. A miracle is like it very literally is an intervention from God. A miracle is something that is so unexpected to happen, it is remarkable. And now it's like we're driving to Costco and we got our miracles and our paper towels, miracles. A wholesale miracle. And as my friend Terry, he talks about, I believe in miracles because I am a miracle. And I believe in miracles because you are miracles. We're in a room full of people who are clean, who are sober, who are alive, and who absolutely should not be here today. I believe in miracles because I see miracles every day in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous or the rooms of Cocaine Anonymous, where I see people who, by all means and measures, have the same hopeless condition that I have, and they are well. And I don't just mean, I'm not getting high today. I mean, they are well. I mean, they're well. Man, I believe in miracles because I see miracles. I believe in miracles because I am a miracle. And if it is as accessible as getting paper towels, it is. As accessible as getting paper towels from Costco. It is available to us all. A miracle, a once-in-a-lifetime event gets to happen to us every single day. That is what's available on offer. A wholesale miracle has taken place. Our earliest printing voiced the hope that every alcoholic who journeys finds the fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous at his destination. Already continues the early text, 2s and 3s and 5s of us have sprung up in other communities. And if you're curious, where does it talk about this in the book? It talks about this in the chapter of Vision for You on page 162. That's what it's quoting. You don't need to know that piece of information. It's fun. And I see all the cool kids writing it down. You guys, look at you, little cool kids. Page 162, just as a fun little piece of information. So it says, 16 years have elapsed between our first printing of this book and the presentation in 1955 of our second edition. In that brief space, Alcoholics Anonymous has mushroomed into nearly 6,000 groups, whose membership is far above 150,000 recovered alcoholics. Make a little note of the 150,000, make a little note of recovered. And I'm going to break this down and talk about this for a while. So we went in 1939, like three groups to nearly 6,000 groups. And I love that it's used the word mushroomed. And some of you guys will probably figure out that I'm a big fat weirdo. Like just a weirdo, like, oh. And what I mean by that is I have a favorite foreword. It's the foreword to the second edition. Oh, it's the best one. And in this foreword, we're going to do some math. Don't you worry, don't leave. Stick it out. I'll do the math, I promise. We're going to talk about geography. We're going to it's going to be delightful. There'll be more math later on. But right now, what we're going to talk about is botany. We're going to talk about fungi. And I was going to say, you just stick with this meeting because in December it'll be DC and I hear she's a real fun guy. That doesn't quite work. I'm just trying to hype you up. I'm so sorry. But the thing about mushrooms is when it's talking about the mushrooming process, we're talking about that incredible fast growth. If you ever had mushrooms that grow in your yard, it's like, oh, that happened overnight. But one of the most incredible things about a mushroom is where do they grow? They grow in the dark. And where does Cocaine Anonymous show up? Where does God show up in my life? God and Cocaine Anonymous shows up and meets me in the dark. And that's where growth begins. And so I just love the little mushroom metaphor. Fun little guys. I'm so silly. Alrighty. So mushroomed into 6,000 group whose membership is far above 150,000. I'm going to come back to that number. Recovered alcoholics. Recovered. And that is the continuation of the very first promise that we saw on the title page last week. Recovered. Recovered does not mean cured. I am recovered. And to be recovered, what does that mean? That means there will never be a time where will ever be safe for me to take a mind-altering substance. I can never smoke crack like a lady. I can never drink like a lady. I can't pop pills I can't take any mind-altering substance. I will always have the allergy. And there will never be a time where it is safe for me to not be fully engaged in the program of action as outlined in this book. Because as soon as I stop, there will be an erosion of the state of grace in which I live, and the mental obsession will return, and I will drink again. I will use again. I will pop another pill. I will smoke some rock. I wasn't classy enough to snort cocaine. That was out of my budget. It's crack. Pinkies up, because I'm a lady. You know what I'm saying? Behind the dumpster with the wet pants. That's where you'll find me. I'm a miracle. Dry pants, both my shoes. Whee! God shows up. But I am recovered, and what that means, what it means to be recovered is the insanity that I have, which is the insane thought that I have when I am as sober as I am today. That thought that tells me this time will be different. Nobody will ever know. You can smoke crack like a lady. That thought is gone. And it happens as a result of the course of action. That's what it means to be recovered. And that is what we are after. We are not after, just don't get high today. No, I'm after freedom. I'm after recovered. I'm after a position in neutrality, safe and protected. I'm after those 10-step promises where the fight is over. I'm good. I'm safe. That's what we have that is available for each and every one of us today. Wholesale miracle. Easier to get into than Costco. I promise. A little bit more work. Well, actually, I don't know if that's true. I mean, inventory is probably more forms than that you have to fill out for a Costco membership. I've not done it. Inventory. Inventory, it behooves me. I do that quite a bit. Alrighty, so when we talk about that at 150,000 recovered, make a little note in your book to see the preface. Go back to the preface. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a chance to write. Let's go back to the preface. And then we're going to go to the preface. And we're going to go to the very first paragraph of the preface, when it says, and I'm just going to read it so y'all have time to catch up because I know I'll go a little too quickly. This is the 4th edition of the book Alcoholics Anonymous. Title of the book, Alcoholics Anonymous. The first edition appeared in April 1939, and in the following 16 years, more than 300,000 copies went into circulation. So between the first edition and the second edition, so there are essentially 300,000 copies of the first edition went out to the world. And what we saw in the foreword to the second edition was that there was a far above, so more than 150,000 recovered alcoholics. So I promise I won't make anyone do the math, although it's tempting to be like, JC, do it real quick. I'm just kidding. I'm not, that look, absolutely no, absolutely. I was supposed to be in bed. No, I'm not doing math. Totally fair. But if I take 300,000 and I divide it by 150,000, what that tells me is that for every 2 books that went out into the world, 1 was getting sober and staying sober. And what we're seeing is about very loosey-goosey math. Not every book went to an alcoholic. Not every alcoholic got a book. But what we're seeing is some very bare bones math of a success rate of 50%. 50%. And we're going to see as we go on into the foreword to the second edition that number is far higher than 50%. But we're seeing a 50% success rate. And if you're thinking, oh, I don't know, that number makes me a little nervous, 50%, that's not 100. I'll tell you 2 things. First, what's our success rate before we get here? Do you know what I mean? I'm rocking 0. Yeah, Donnie's got it. 0. I've got a 0% success rate. And I promise you, if you are here on a Thursday afternoon or a Thursday evening, wherever you are in the world, and you're listening to me natter on about the historical significance of the 12 traditions of Alcoholics Anonymous, which became the 12 traditions of Cocaine Anonymous, and you're sitting through it, I know beyond a shadow of a doubt, you don't have the, but you got nothing. You got nothing that you can put against you in that first drink, first drug, first hit, first hoot. Girl, you hopeless. You're hopeless because you'd be doing that, not listening to me. You know what I'm saying? So if you're here, you're rocking a 0% success rate. Because if you're like me, there's nothing that I was able to put between me and the first drink, the first drug, the first hit, the first hoot. The only thing that I had to put between me and that first drink by the end was suicide. That was the only thing that I got. And so I got 0. I got 0. So what we're seeing is 50% success. That is way better than what I got. 0. But also, here's my experience. I've been doing this thing for a while. And I've worked with a lot of people. And I've sponsored a lot of people. I've been in the rooms with a lot of people. I've seen a lot of people. And here has been my experience. I have never, and I want to be very clear, I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I'm saying I haven't seen it. I have never seen anyone fully engaged in this process, the process of the 12 steps as laid out in this book, Alcoholics Anonymous, as a way of life relapse. I've never seen it. And I mean that. And I truly mean that. I've never seen that. I've seen a lot of people start a 4 and relapse, not finish it. I've seen a lot of people sit on amends and get drunk or high again. I've seen a lot of people do this work. I've seen less people do this work, but I've seen people do this work and have powerful, spectacular recoveries and not continue this way of life. And I've seen the erosion of the state of grace and I've seen them relapse. I've seen that. But I have never seen anyone who is fully doing this thing as a way of life, get drunk, get high, kill themselves. I have never seen it. And I'm not going to say it does not happen or it could not happen, but I've never seen it. And so to my eyes, this thing has got a 100% success rate to my statistics. Not that I'm doing that math that rigorously, although I would. If I had time, you better believe I'd be making spreadsheets. I think they're fun. Which, I mean, keep everything I say with a grain of salt. Like, ooh, a spreadsheet. I'd like to learn how to do that. Ooh, fun. Can we have a pie chart? Wee, yeah, the pie chart's a circle. Do this stuff and you'll stay sober, that. Other pies chart, completely other, separate circle, people that don't do it. They get high, they get drunk, they're not here, Any hoodles. So forward to the second edition, 50%. And it says groups are to be found in each of the United States. Your flow charts, I know Peppa's calling me out. I was going to do a flow chart for the chapter working with others. And I have been putting that off for a while. I just got to wait till my ADHD gives me enough motivation to do it. And it hasn't. So groups are to be found in each of the United States and all of the provinces of Canada. That's me. Graphs, charts, everyone's in for it, right? Oh, we can color in a map of all the places. So groups are to be found in each of the United States and all the provinces of Canada. And so what's incredible is in 16 years, all the provinces of Canada, I don't think there's too many people here today that know the provinces. We had to color them in geography class, which isn't a problem until you get to Nunavut and the Northwest Territories. All those tiny little islands, it's a pain in the ass. It's only something that Canadians know, that struggle of having to color in Baffin Island and Ellesmere Island. Anywho, but in 16 years, it went all over Canada and the United States. And then it says it is flourishing communities in the British Isles. That's a lot of you guys, my homies, across the pond. You know what's up over there. Heck yeah. And the Scandinavian countries. It says South Africa, South America, Mexico, Alaska, Australia, and Hawaii. Now, you don't have to be a nerd for geography. I am. You might have caught something though, because it said all of the United States, and then it mentioned Alaska, and then it mentioned Hawaii. Well, it's because in 1955, Alaska and Hawaii weren't states. They didn't become states until 1959. So I'm just going to let you know that the big book, this program, precedes Alaska and Hawaii being states. So just a fun little geography fact. I hope you win at CA Trivia the next time you're there. We need to have like a trivia night because I try to hype that up. You know what I mean? Like, ooh. Anyway. And it says, all told, promising beginnings have been made in some 50 foreign countries and U.S. possessions. Some are just now taking shape in Asia. The U.S. possessions would be places like Guam, Puerto Rico, American Samoa. Just if you were on the edge of your seat to be like, what are the U.S. possessions? Actually, in 55, it might have been the Philippines as well. Maybe, you know. I know you're like, oh, is it? Oh, nobody cares. I do. Geography. Woo! All right. So many of our friends encourage us by saying this is but a beginning, only the augury of a much larger future ahead. Now, the word augury is a prediction. Only this prediction of a much larger future ahead. And now what we're going to dive into is some of the early history of Alcoholics Anonymous. And it says the spark that was to flare into the first AA group was struck in Akron, Ohio in June 1935 during a talk between a New York stockbroker. And if you're writing in your book, that New York stockbroker is Bill Wilson, and an Akron physician. That is Dr. Bob. So, and you know what's interesting is the spark that flares into the group, what starts Alcoholics Anonymous, which then leads to the formation of Cocaine Anonymous, is not Bill Wilson's sobriety date. It is not when Bill Wilson gets sober. It is not when there is one, but it is when there is the first successful 12-step call, when there is two. That is how important one addict, for us, one addict working with another is. There's not one, there's two. You know what I'm saying? And by successful, what I want you to know is all of Bill Wilson's 12-step work was successful. He was staying sober, and that allowed him to stay sober long enough for Dr. Bob to get the message and for other people to get the message. You know what I'm saying? But I just want to point that out. The spark is not when there's one. It's when there's two. And I've been talking with some sponsees, and I was talking about how I really love to hold this idea of non-dual consciousness. What I mean is where two seemingly opposite things can be true. And what I love to do is I love to take sayings that would make me bristle with antagonism. You know, things that you might hear in the rooms that you think, man, that is the stupidest thing that I've ever heard. Things like keep the plug in the jug. You know what I mean? Keep the plug in the jug, right? Well, if I am an alcoholic, if I'm an addict, I do not have the power to keep the plug in the jug. I can't. It just keeps falling out. Do you know what I mean? I can't do it. But what I've been sitting with is this idea is like what I'm called to do in the 12 steps. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to clear away this channel between me and God and have that power flow through me. That is what I am trying to do. And it flows through me as I begin to clear it away as I write inventory. I begin to clear it away as I share that with God and another human being. As I become willing and ask for God to relieve me of my defects of character, that channel becomes clearer and clearer. And as I go out and make that amends, it becomes clearer and clearer. I'm clearing that away. But if I don't help others, it's like I put a plug in the jug, and that spiritual energy can't flow through, and it stops and it gets stagnant and it dies. You know, that stagnant water. And I need to be that channel. I need it to flow through. So I've got to work with others. And so that's that whole tangent. Don't get me started on don't get me started on those. And I love that, Tim. Me too. That's where it started for me. It's just like, well, holding to ideas. All right. So it says 6 months earlier. So things that we hear in the rooms that might, and to be fair, I don't hear them much in Cocaine Anonymous, but things that we hear in the rooms that exactly no morons hear. Tim, you're delightful. Everyone's lovely. It's only cool kids that come to this place. You know what I'm saying? This is a cool kids club. If you're here, guess what that means? You're a cool kid. You're welcome. Love you lots. I am so sorry. Oh, it's good. 6 months earlier. But you might have heard things like, I promise, I hope no one here has heard this. But when I was getting sober, I heard you got to wait a year before you can sponsor. Anyone ever hear that? Yeah, I heard some, yeah. We would not be here if Bill Wilson had waited a year to sponsor. He had been sponsoring for the entire 6 months, trying to sponsor, trying to work with others, trying to carry this message for the 6 months. And Dr. Bob, wish you a slow recovery. Oh, that is mean. Could you imagine saying that to somebody? Like, oh, I wish you a slow recovery. Oh, that's mean. Right? Like, this thing was meant, as Eileen's talking about, this thing was meant to happen rapidly, to happen quickly, to have this spiritual awakening, because I've got to get well quickly, because the mental obsession is on me. I don't want to wait to work with others. I have a friend here in Calgary. He did a workshop. He's Cocaine Anonymous. And he was doing a workshop, and he's like, my responsibility as a sponsor is to remove all the barriers to you sponsoring others. Because I've got to have this, he doesn't say this part, this is me. You got to have that spirit flow through me. 6 months. He did not wait 6 months to work with others. But if he had waited, or if any of us wait, I'm going to die. I'm going to die if I don't get into action working with others. So, 6 months earlier, the broker had been relieved of his drink obsession. So the mental obsession, you can make a little note, mental obsession, that is what happens. I take the actions of the 12 steps. It treats my spiritual malady. As that happens, the mental obsession is relieved. And it says by a sudden, now it's unfortunate that it's on two sides of the page. This is unfortunate. But this is our solution in Alcoholics Anonymous, and thereby this is our solution in Cocaine Anonymous. By a sudden spiritual experience. So the solution is a spiritual experience. That's what I need. Now, don't get too tripped up on sudden, but what we can use sudden is to emphasize with some freaking velocity. Don't work a step a year. Don't work a step a month. Dive in, go hard, go fast. Anyone ever leave any crumbs lying around? Anyone ever let ice melt in their drink? That's not how I need to do my recovery. I need to do recovery with the same emphasis that I did when I was getting high, diving in. I'm off on a tangent. As an addict, I live by one rule. If it feels good, do it. This little crackhead, I am a relief-seeking missile. I need relief, and if it gives me just an instant of relief, man, I will do it. I will do all of it. I will do it until it burns my life to the ground, and I am at the embers of my existence filled with regret. The only exception to that being the steps. Then I'm like, let me wait in. Let me take my time. I don't want to overdo it. No, overdo it. Go hard. That's where the solution lies. Do it. This is, like growing up, it's like, oh, we were all worried about peer pressure. Now I'm going to peer pressure. All the cool kids are doing it. All the cool kids are doing it. They're diving in, working the steps quickly and thoroughly and sponsoring others. And you know what they say? There's this rumor going around that if you don't sponsor others and work the steps quickly and thoroughly, you eat your boogers. Oh, could you believe that? Oh, well, we can't have them saying that about us, so we better get going. I'm going to just use the peer pressure. I am so stupid. Keep coming back. It'll be DC next month. And I promise you will do a phenomenal job and will reference boogers 100% less. Promise. I love it. So, sudden spiritual experience. That's what I'm after. That is what our solution is. Eileen knows what's up. That is what our solution is in Cocaine Anonymous. And it says, following a meeting with an alcoholic friend. So this alcoholic friend, if you're writing in your book, you can make a little note that this alcoholic friend is Ebby Thatcher. EBBYTHATCHER. Ebby Thatcher, who had been in contact with the Oxford groups of that day. Now, the Oxford group, I'm going to talk a little about the Oxford group, and I'm realizing, because I got 5 minutes left, I'm not going to do the full history breakdown today, but I will break it. So if at the end of today's meeting, you're like, it's still a little confusing, I don't know who's who, I don't know what's what, I will be doing a quick, actually that might be a lie, I will do a full review. And by the end of it, you're going to have pictures, you're going to have faces. I was going to screen share, I'll screen share next week, of who's who and what's what and who we talking about. But the Oxford Group is a religious organization. Alcoholics Anonymous and thereby Cocaine Anonymous, not religious. But their whole deal was about having a deeper experience of the God of their understanding. That was their whole deal. And they had a series of actions that any human being could take that would produce this deeper experience of God. So, it goes on to say, he had also been greatly helped by the late Dr. William D. Silkworth, a New York specialist in alcoholism, who is now accounted no less than a medical saint by AA members, and whose story of the early days of our society appears in the next pages. So Dr. William D. Silkworth, he worked at the Towns Hospital in New York City. And Bill probably inflated the numbers. Bill was like, he worked with 50,000 or oversaw the care of 50,000. It's probably a little less, but I mean, still way more than I got, 50,000 different alcoholics and different drug addicts. And he was an expert in alcoholism. And it says, from this doctor, the broker is Bill Wilson, had learned the grave nature of alcoholism. And you can make a little note in your book when it says the grave nature of alcoholism. What we're talking about is the mental obsession and the physical allergy. That is our problem. So our problem, mental obsession, physical allergy. That is the grave nature of alcoholism. And I want to point something out. So grave nature of addiction. But I want to point something out when it says the grave nature, grave as in fatal. That's why I'm emphasizing physical allergy, mental obsession. That is, now, yeah, I got 5. I'm supposed to wrap up in 5. Well, now 2 more minutes. 2 more minutes. I'll try to push it to 3 because I'll push my limits. Nobody relates to doing that. So that is my problem. That is what makes this illness hopeless. And it says, though he could not, so he learned the grave nature of alcoholism, though he could not accept all the tenets of the Oxford groups. So the main tenet, what we're looking at, that that Bill Wilson was not open to, was organized religion. For our purposes, that is for our learning purposes. The main tenet that he was not open to was this organized religion. He's not in for that. He was convinced of the need for moral inventory. Well, that sounds like a 4th step, right? Step 4, moral inventory. Sounds like step 4. It says confession of personality defects. Well, that sounds like a step 5. Restitution to those harmed. That sounds like amends. Restitution, making it right, right? Helpfulness to others. Well, that sounds like step 12. Step 12, where I carry this message to others and I practice these principles on all my affairs. And the necessity of belief in, the belief starts in 2, and dependence upon God. The dependence upon God is the thrust of the remaining steps, and really the thrust of the whole steps. And so what we're seeing right there, and you can make a little note, that is our program of action, is the 12 steps. So what we're trying to glean from this paragraph, and I will put it all together for us in a historical timeline next week. But what we're trying to glean is, what is our problem? We got our problem from Dr. Silkworth, who told us of the physical allergy and the mental obsession. What is our solution? Our solution is the spiritual awakening. And we're going to see next week how that came from Dr. Carl Jung. And how do I get from the problem to the solution? How do I get from the grave nature of alcoholism to the spiritual awakening? And it is going to be the program of action, which for us in 2024 is the 12 steps. So I hope you'll join us next week when I will do a screen share. And that might be fun. And if not, just come anyways. Thanks for having me.